So welcome back to another episode of the Ohio Bass Podcast. I'm your host, Nick. You can follow me on X or on TikTok at Ohio_Bass, on Instagram or Threads at Ohio_Bass_outdoors. You can always email the show at theohiobasspodcast@gmail.com and join our large listening community on Pandora, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple, Amazon Music, Audacity, TuneIn, YouTube, and more. So we have another really awesome interview lined up here in a little bit. We're going to take a trip down to Alabama and talk to an MLF BFL angler who's been doing it at the highest level. So he did a really good job answering questions, so good that he actually answered my first 4 questions with his first response. And he brought something up. The second question I have wrote down here was, what made you gravitate toward bass fishing? And throughout his first answer, he mentioned as a kid, growing up, looking at the Bassmaster magazines, flipping through them in study hall, daydreaming about fishing the highest level of bass tournaments, and that really brought back memories for me. I remember doing the exact same thing, going through page by page, reading all the articles, looking at the ads for the new gear coming out. And I hope kids still do that nowadays. I know magazines and print have kind of all went online, but when he started talking about that, the memories of, just out fishing all your friends. I remember the biggest day of the year for me back then was the fishing derbies. And, it's funny, 25 years later, you still have that same passion. You still want to beat your friends out there on the water. And he's been able to do that at the highest level, which is awesome. So I have a ton of questions. We break down the tournament aspect, fishing style, his boat setup, all sorts of good information. I think someone will take away new information no matter what skill level. And then we start talking about frog fishing, which is my favorite way to fish, actually, if I had to choose. You can't do it every time, but we actually open up and give some tips. So back when I was starting to break down and edit this video, I remember I did a video a long time ago on YouTube for frog fishing tips, and I think we're going to give some now because I couldn't remember all of them at the time. So I've always looked at frogs and put them in 2 different categories. One that has a cupped mouth like a traditional popper, and then the other one which there's no cup. So the one with the cup mouth I will use in more of an open water situation where you can't use a traditional popper with the treble hooks because you're going to get tangled up because there's a lot of stuff, slightly underneath the surface. And when it's windy, if you have more wind than you want with the topwater bait, but you only have a couple feet of water that you're fishing with, I'll go with the frog that has the cupped mouth. And I like it because it splashes, it makes some more noise. It's more noticeable when the wind's choppy or over the open water when you're trying to cover open water. So the frog that doesn't have the cupped mouth, I'll throw around large vegetation when there's really, really weedy. And also, I'll throw that when there's no wind, when it's way more noticeable. And traditionally, I just reel those in. Sometimes I use a stop and go approach. Sometimes I go really slow. But those are the 2 situations where I use those 2 frogs. So if you're looking to buy a new frog or trying to decide what frog to tie on, do yourself a favor and look at what color the belly is. A lot of brands will come out with different color tops of frogs, but if you notice and if you flip them upside down, the bellies are the same. I have a dark brown frog, a dark green frog, a neon green frog, and a yellow frog, and when I flip those all upside down, the belly is white. They're all the same, and 90% of what the fish is going to see is the belly. Now, the all black frog has been my go-to color for the last couple of years. So originally, I would only throw that in low light situations, early morning or when the sun's going down. And you might ask, hey Nick, why are you throwing a black frog when the lighting conditions are low? Well, think about the fish. If you're underneath the water and you're looking up at the sky, what would be easier to see? An all black profile or a white or maybe a neon color that's going to be blending in with the sky? Also keep in mind that a lot of times when the bass come up and hit that frog, they don't even necessarily know it's a frog. They just see something moving around on top of the water, especially if you're in large cover. It could be a snake, it could be a wounded bait fish a lot of times, or a mouse. So fish don't have hands. So the only tool they have to go up and see what that food is their mouth. And another good thing to think about, and I see this a lot in the springtime, is if your frog's just hanging out, minding its own business, and the next thing you know, a bass comes up and just nails it, like a shark out in the ocean hitting a seal. A lot of times that is not the death blow. It's just trying to stun the prey. And it'll circle back around and then take a second swipe, and that's when you set the hook. And I guess my last bass fishing tip for topwater frogs, just because it's so diverse, I can't think of another bait that can cause a hunger strike and a reaction strike, depending on how you use it. So in the summer, you give it a long cast, you're burning it on the top, the fish comes out of nowhere and nails it, that's obviously going to be a reaction strike. But if you slow it down, you fish in the pockets, you pop it, stop it, maybe you let it sit there for 5-10 seconds, then move it again. To me, that's going to be a hunger strike. And when I'm in that situation, I always add scent. Now, I use a company called Liquid Mayhem, but everyone has their personal favorites. So to me, that makes a big difference. I've fished an area for an hour and not had any hits, not had any activity. And then I add scent, fishing the same holes, and then I get a bite. And I think the fish actually hold on to it longer also with that scent because it gives them just an extra element of reality. So real quick, before we get to the interview, I had a lady text me just yesterday, said she's taking a family trip to New River, Virginia, and asked me if I had any fishing tips. So I've never heard of New River, Virginia, so I just gave her some general advice on river fishing, like try to find the deepest parts of the river and fish around structure. So what's the easiest way to do that? Well, for me, it's tying on a deeper sonar and letting it scout the area that you're fishing. It'll tell you exactly how deep the water is, where the elevation changes are, where there's structure underneath the water you can't see, whether you're fishing a muddy bottom or a rock bottom or a weedy bottom. Or equally as important, if there's not any elevation changes, not any structure, not any fish. That way, you're not wasting your time fishing an area where there's no activity or fish. So if you head to deepersonar.com and use my promo code OhioBass, all caps, all one word, you'll get a discount. I use a Deeper Sonar every time I fish a new location. It's a must if you're fishing from the shore or a kayak. Head to deepersonar.com, use promo code OhioBass. Catch more fish.
No, seriously, come on, do it. Do it.
And I know I say this on every episode, but I truly mean it. I really appreciate all the support, so if you have a second, please give us a comment, a like, a review on whatever app you're listening to us on. And with all that being said, let's hit it.
What have I got?
Alright, let's head to the hotline presented by Deeper Sonar. Head to deepersonar.com to check out the new Cutting Edge Quest bait boat. So as advertised, we're bringing on an MLF BFL seasoned vet tournament angler. He lives in Alabama, and you can find him on Instagram at Russ Haughton Bass Angler. Russ, how you doing today, my friend?
Not bad. Very warm down here in Alabama.
Trust me, it's really hot here in Ohio too. I think everyone's feeling it. So first of all, I want to say thank you for taking the time to sit down and not just have a conversation with me, but everyone who's listening.
Well, we really appreciate the invite. I'm happy to be here. If we can help people, that's usually the whole goal and purpose.
Absolutely. I'm glad you feel that way. I feel the same way too. The very first question I always ask everybody is, could you just give us a little background, let us know where you're from, how you grew up fishing, what you're doing now, and I'll just kind of leave it open-ended for you.
Well, I started out, I grew up in Mississippi, just me and my dad, and we kind of fished for everything. I mean, we started out with a 16-foot, 10-bottom boat with a tiller motor, crappie, catfish, trot lines, bass, striper. It didn't matter. We wanted to catch it all. And then I joined the Marine Corps. At 17, my dad had a sign for me, and went from South Carolina to California, back to South Carolina, back to California. And, of course, love fishing in both spots. Bought my first bass boat in South Carolina, and fish, that's all I did. But I focused on bass fishing. That was my primary target. I wanted to be a tournament angler. I had the Bassmaster magazine, and the same goal as every young man my age at the time. I'm going to be a professional. Got out of the Marine Corps, had knee problems, and had to get out. Then I started really tournament fishing. I had the time to focus on it, and started in South Carolina, just club tournaments, some charity tournaments, and some smaller trails, 60, 70 boats. Moved to California, really started kind of taking it serious. Tried my hand at one of the FLW bigger events. Now I think they're called the Costa, or they were the National Guard. Now they're the Costa, with the likes of Brent Ayler. He actually won that tournament, and some other bigger names that most of us know, and realized I got a long way to go. So stepped back down off of that, kept fishing out west, wound up moving to Alabama, and fished the Alabama Bass Trail, BFLs. I try to stay in some of the ones that make sense financially, to where the entry fee and the fuel and the lodging, the payoff at least makes sense financially, where not that we ever profit at our level, but something in my pocket to make me feel good. That's where we are currently.
Nice. Well, you're already doing a great job answering my questions, because you just got the next two, whether or not you're a multi-species angler and what made you gravitate toward bass. So can you break down the different tournament trails, maybe some of the similarities and differences between them?
Right now I'm focused on the Major League Fishing Phoenix Bass Fishing League, because it has the regional, which leads to the All-American. Always been a goal of mine, try to get to the All-American. And unfortunately, I'm sitting really good in the points, well within the points to go to regional. But I get a knee surgery next Friday, going to be down for 3 weeks, and the next tournament's in 3 weeks. So there's still a tournament after that. There's a chance, but that's the purpose behind it. And we average 120 to 140 boats, depending on the location of the tournament. Prior to that, I did the American Bass Anglers, what was called the Open Series. They stopped it and changed the name. Did really well in it. Had no problem top fiving at the end of the year in points. Entry fee fully paid with the earnings I made. Prior to that, I did the Alabama Bass Trail. And if anyone knows anything about that, that's 225 teams of the best anglers, not only from Alabama, but basically the tri-state area. And first tournament in that did really good. Came in 4th place at that 225 boats. Got a lofty check. The next 2 years, swapping partners and whatnot, like I said, the team format, not really, it was never going to go outside of the Alabama Bass Trail. So that's when I kind of left it, hopped over to the BFL. Before that, smaller club stuff, charities, open tournaments, stuff like that. Just learning new lakes, because I had moved to Alabama where I had never fished. And people that know Alabama, South Alabama, Central Alabama, and North Alabama, a lot of the pros move here because those 3 regions cover such a diversity of bodies of water. If you focus on your little area, you're really missing opportunities within the state. So I really spent a lot of time fishing around the state.
All right, well, let's circle back around. You mentioned MLF, or Major League Fishing. So when I think of Major League Fishing, I'm thinking that every single fish that qualifies goes toward your total. Is that the format that you're fishing in, or is it just the 5 biggest fish?
No, the BFLs, the Phoenix BFLs, is still a 5-fish total weight culling tournament. There's 4 one-day events, and then 1 two-day event. They call it the Super Tournament. And the top X amount of anglers qualify for the regional, and the top 6 from the regional move on to All-American. And then up from there, which if I legitimately qualify, is the Toyota Series, which I did last year, but I still didn't feel I was ready. It's still a 5-fish total weight, but it's a 3-day tournament. Their invitationals is their next step, which is 5 fish. The Every Fish Count things is their top deal, that Bass Pro Tour.
All right, 2-part question here. 1, do you typically fish the same lakes every year, or do they sometimes substitute new ones in? And 2, do you happen to have a favorite bass lake that comes to mind?
They typically change out at least one lake, but they hit the trails kind of the same every year outside of that one lake. Now, but the lakes are diverse. A couple of the stops are 2.5 hours from me in what I would call different regions of our area as far as fisheries go.
Mm-hmm.
So it does give you a diverse thing. Now, favorite lake that I fish here in Alabama would be, I live on 3 lakes, or I live at right beside 3 lakes. I'm within 10 minutes of one of the boat ramps, 5 minutes of the other, and 1.5 miles from the other lake.
Nice.
So I fish those 3 a lot, but the lake in the middle, which would be Lake Mitchell, it's a small lake. I think it's 5,700 acres. I would probably call my favorite.
What kind of preparation do you do when you know that you're heading to a new lake for the first time?
This is the first time I'm probably going to take 20 to 30 rods. I'm definitely, first thing I'm going to do is get on YouTube, or not YouTube, Google Earth, excuse me. Get an overall layout, start looking at different zones, zoom in. Okay, is there grass? Is there cypress trees? Is there a lot of rock? What am I looking at? And kind of study the lake on Google Earth. And if I find some areas that look interesting, I'm going to go over to the Navionics site where I can see the maps and the contours and see what's there. Is there a ditch? Is there a ledge? Is there flats? Because all that's going to help me determine if it's a good area for that time of year. And then truthfully, because I only know what I've seen online, I'm going to take all my rods, load everything in the boat to where I can basically grab anything that I would use and kind of start picking it apart. Versus a lake I know, I'm only going to take exactly what I know I need there, and I might only take 6 rods. You know, I don't need to put 30 rods in the boat. That's very difficult to deal with 30 rods.
Yeah.
And those are my first steps, and then everything else begins when I get to the water.
Okay, so does the time of year, like the seasons, play into your thought process any?
Definitely seasonal. You know, we all know the basic 4 seasons. You know, spring, summer, fall, winter. A lot of that determines what the fish are doing, where they're doing it, and even within an area that you pick out, because I pick out big areas, what they may be doing in that area. And that's how I'm going to pick my areas out with that Google Earth and Navionics study. And then I got to go fish it. And the first thing I'm going to do is go right around all those areas. Put my eyes on them. Just right around. No graphing, other than looking at some depths and water temps. I want to see what's there. I want to say shallow water angler.
Yeah.
Though I will fish deep, I prefer shallow. I have live scope. I do not. Most of the time that grass, the cover is still on it. It's very distracting to me. I'm going to start looking for things I want to fish that kind of match that time of year. The first half day of practice, because I usually get there 3 days early. And then I'll spend the rest of that day graphing, looking. The next 2 days, I'm fishing. I'm eliminating water, really finding my key area where I want to focus on, and not knowing, because I don't live there, hoping it's not a community hole and another 50 boats are going to join me on tournament day.
All right, so you mentioned earlier that you used to daydream about fishing bass tournaments as a kid, and now you're doing it. So can you bring us behind the curtain a little bit and maybe walk us through what an average tournament is like? Or maybe what was the best tournament you ever fished?
I got good examples of both, but I'll go with the best tournament. We had a tournament on the Alabama River. It's about an 80-mile stretch of river from dam to dam. It's not your typical always flowing river. It's controlled by the power company, Alabama Power. When they're releasing water, determines how much current you got, and really river level. Watch that river rise and fall 2 feet in the same day. So it gets, you'll practice 3 days straight, be on the best thing, show up Saturday morning, and the river's dropped out 5 feet. Everything you found was on dry land now. So, but one tournament, coming back into the boat ramp, big rocky bluff, spotted bass are very prevalent. The Alabama spotted bass, or Coosa River bass to be specific, is on the Alabama River. And the Saturday before the tournament, I found this hole and was catching big fish almost every cast. I said, this is ridiculous. And I seen some boats coming. I said, I'm done here. I went and put it on the trailer. I didn't take a few days to practice. We showed up Saturday morning, and this never happened. I pull out there, current's flowing good, which gets the Coosa River spots very active, and I commence to throwing back 3.5 pounders as quick as I could, just as fast as I could catch them. And had just short of 20 pounds. At one point, took an hour break right there on spot lock to eat a sandwich because my forearms and hands were cramping so bad. But it's a one-day tournament. So I'm going to clean the hole out, and I'm never going to leave because other people will roll in, and they're stacked up in here. At just short of 20 pounds, won the tournament by like 7 pounds, had big fish. Somehow a largemouth moved in there, and I caught one around 5.5. And I would call that the best day of fishing that never happened. So that would be the best. Average, my favorite thing to do is skip docks. Pretty consistently 12 to 14 pounds doing it in the summer with all the shade it provides and the brim underneath it. You may win the tournament. You may be surprised. You may come in middle of the pack. So it's always a gamble. And so it provides a lot of great finishes, but definitely a lot of average finishes.
Awesome. So what's your boat setup look like on tournament day? Is it super organized? Is it complete chaos? And are there any things that you bring on the boat non-fishing related but helps you out on the water?
I run a 21-foot Phoenix with a 250 on it. Really is more for fuel capacity. We fish a lot of river systems, and it'll hold 50 or 52 gallons. So I never want to worry about fuel. Always, whether it's winter or summer, take lots of water and then some sort of electrolyte drink, Gatorade, liquid IV, something of that nature. Off the shelf stuff. That's kind of non-fishing related. I take my snacks, but I'll be honest, in the tournament, I won't even have a snack till I got 5 fish. Unfortunately, sometimes that's 30 minutes before weigh-in. Wind up starving that day. But I do eat some snacks, just little, anything I can eat with my fingers while the gas motor is running. You'll never see me eating while on the trolling motor because that's taking up time. My rods start out extremely organized. Everything's on the deck perfect. The rods that I'm going to use, no extra ones. I don't want them in the way. My tackle storage system is perfect. I can find everything easy. If the tournament's going really good, it stays that way. If I'm having to scramble, at the end of the day, I have to spend the whole next day cleaning out the inside of my boat and putting everything back together. So that question is a little hard to answer because it's ended both ways. But a lot of days, I'll be honest, it's chaos. The last tournament I fished at 11:36, weigh-ins at my check-in was at 2:30. I had 4 fish, or 1 fish, excuse me, at that point. I said, something's got to change. So I made a drastic change, pulled out 2 different rods, threw all the other ones just kind of on the deck out of where my feet would be. Fortunately, got 5 fish, wound up highly saving that tournament, getting a lot of points. And so it worked out, but my boat looked extremely bad at the end of the day.
So I have some follow-up questions about your rods and reel setup and bait selection, but before we get away from the tournament aspect, since you fished in so many different states, do you think the behavior of the bass are different depending on what state you're fishing in?
Most of my experience is going to be the West Coast, so Arizona, California, a little bit in Nevada, only a few times. The rest is all really southeast region, so from East Texas to South Carolina, below Tennessee, down. So it was extremely different from the West Coast to the East Coast. The West Coast is a lot of super clear water, really deep water, other than a few places, not a lot of vegetation, not a lot of lay down and docks, because they're all watershed lakes in Southern California. Now, Meade, Havasu, those places have some vegetation, but it's still super clear water. There were times a year I could fish like I was in South Carolina again and catch fish. But a lot of times I was fishing deep, using electronics, a lot smaller lines, smaller baits. In the southeast region, I'm able to typically fish up in the dirt, 8 feet or less, seeing what I'm fishing. throwing at, what I'm fishing at. Bigger baits, definitely heavier line. The water color usually is at least got some color to it. Now, I haven't fished up north. It's one of my goals. Get up north, kind of the Midwest, northern area, and do some smallmouth fishing and whatnot. So that's a goal. I haven't done it, so I can only speak from west to southeast. I would have to imagine the central part of the United States and the northeast, northern areas. I would have to imagine all of those are different just based on my experience.
Can you walk us through some of your rod and reel setups? Is it majority spinning or casting? What your line preference is, things like that?
I'll be honest, I have a couple of spinner rods. Usually they're at home on a rod rack. I may take one as a just in case. Most of my rods are 7.1 or longer. A lot of them are 7.3. It's a perfect general purpose rod. My lines, if you see me throwing 12-pound line, to me, on average, that's light line fishing. Usually I'm throwing 16 to 20, if not 25. In my mind, the way I'm fishing and where I'm fishing, I'm kind of fishing for a bigger fish. And I would rather have the line to land that fish and get less bites than get more bites. But then I hook the bigger fish and can't handle them and get them in the boat. So I like bigger rods, medium, heavy to heavy. I got a lot of medium rods. I throw crankbait. I love a jerkbait, but in shallower water. Spinner baits. I have some parabolic rods, composite glass rods. But usually you're going to see me with a skipping rod or a flipping, frogging kind of rod in my hand.
Do you fish mostly mono, fluoro, or braid?
Usually mono, or fluoro, excuse me. Now, I usually throw all my top water on braid, but I've been known to put the top water on mono because I don't trust the leader. I'm not great at some FG knot or anything. So I'll just put straight mono if the water's super clear and we only got one or two lakes that are like that. Those I'll go to mono. Usually I'm throwing braid or fluorocarbon.
So this is kind of a loaded question, but can you describe your fishing style? Are you a finesse guy? Are you a power fisherman? Are you constantly moving? Are you grinding out in the same area?
Even from what I've said, people would assume and naturally assume I'm a shallow water power fisherman. Now I will fish slow. I will slow down when I realize that I got to pick stuff apart to get bit. Because again, I'm looking for 5 fish by a certain time of day. I've had co-anglers tell me though that you draw in these tournaments that when I think I'm going slow, apparently I'm still going quite fast. So I would say I'm a pretty quick moving. I have stuck with stuff too long, without a doubt, especially baits being hard-headed. I'm not bit in a certain area, firing up the gas motor and I'm moving on. I'm leaving. I've got other areas, and when I get in them, I'm usually moving kind of quick. Now, if I start getting bit in an area and it's quality fish and I get it dialed in, then I will start power pulling down and really fish slow. If I get it super dialed in, then I can move even faster. I'm throwing a specific bait at a specific target, shaking it 3 times, setting the hook, and I'm on to the next one. I'm not. I've got it dialed in at that point. But if I'm getting bit in an area, I'll slow way down. I'll power pull down. I'll sit still and work, 30 feet of bank before I lift them and move. But usually my trolling motor's on about 7 to 8, and my foot's on the button.
All right. So without giving away all your secrets, can you share some of your favorite shallow water baits?
I love a skipping jig because I can not only skip it really good, usually that's like an Arky style jig, Arky head style. It'll skip real good. I can still flip it and pitch it. And if need be, I'm around sparse grass, I can also swim it. So I love a jig. To me, you can't beat a buzz bait or a whopper plopper. And then soft plastics that skip good. I'm going to throw those. And I don't mean just skipping under docks. You got pontoons you can skip between. A lot of overhanging trees and bushes and big limbs you can skip under. There may be a log that's leaning off the bank into the water, but that first 8 feet toward the bank has a gradual gap of 2 feet underneath it. Well, I can skip under it and fish a lot of the other side, saving me time. any of those. Now, fall and winter, I'm going to have a crankbait on, moving it at a pretty good clip. Here, again, this is in Alabama. I don't rule any bait out, but my favorites would be a jig or a soft plastic. And topwater would be the buzzbait or a whopper flopper. I can really cover water fast with those.
Do you have any cool fishing tips that you picked up over the years? Maybe something that, you won't be able to find in a magazine or on YouTube?
At one point, yes, I did. At this point, I don't think there's any secrets anymore. I think for shallow water power fishing, you go on any YouTube, Facebook, Instagram post, any of it, and it's right there for you to see. If you really look for the details, all the tournaments are live now, and outside of the live scope guys who are shaking minnows and whatnot, and obviously that works great. They're doing super well, and if I'm at that level, I guess I would have to do it. But a lot of my little tricks, I can give you a good whopper plopper pack. You take one out of the pack and throw it, and you're going to lose. You're only going to hook up 50% of the bites when it's straight out of the pack. That's just, for whatever reason, that's the deal with a whopper plopper. And I had an older gentleman tell me, because I was complaining about it, I said, this is like the best topwater bait. Unless I'm around vegetation, I get a lot of bites. He said, how are you throwing it? I said, I open the pack and tie it on and throw it. He said, well, that's why. He told me, take the split rings off, take the hooks off, put on double split rings, front and back, change the front hook, leave it the same size, which they're number 4s, I believe. They're number 4, so okay. Leave it the same size, but go to and the hook he recommended, and I will not change, because every time I try to, I go back to having problems with bite to hook up ratios, is that Mustad triple grip treble hook. Mm-hmm. And on the back hook, go ahead and upsize it to a number 2, quite a bit larger, Mustad triple grip, but with double split rings. And I went from 50 to 90 to 95% hook up and land ratio. So I swear by that. I will not throw a whopper plopper any other way. The minute I buy them, I bring them home to my shop, open them all up, and go ahead and modify them, and then hang them on the peg for them. So awesome. That's one good little tip. It may work well on other baits. I haven't tried, but it does on the whopper plopper.
Have you ever used the double fluke rig? Are you even allowed to use a double fluke rig in a tournament?
Some tournaments you can, but those same tournaments you can throw an A-rig. A lot of the tournaments I fish, you're not allowed to use a double fluke rig. Okay. Have I thrown it a lot? Yes. Back in the day, they allowed it, no problem. Love it. Now, I don't even consider it because I'm not allowed to use it.
So you briefly mentioned social media and how you can find almost anything on any platform now. What are your thoughts? How do you think social media has influenced the fishing industry? And do you think it's a positive thing or a negative thing?
My honest thoughts would be, so I have a Facebook and I have an Instagram. Instagram, you post pictures or you can post reels. All my comments are usually positive. They're very encouraging or great job or wow. They're not negative at all. Facebook, I rarely post anything. I more will use it for research if I got a problem with my boat or electronics or something. But even there, you post a question, you're looking for help. 70% of the people commenting are almost calling you an idiot because you don't already know, instead of just answering the question. And I think that happens a lot on social media. Like I said, I never have seen it on Instagram, ever, not once. Mm-hmm. But Facebook, I quit even putting. I mean, you post a fish, they can see it. You're holding the scales. It shows it's 7.3 pounds.
Piece of push.
Oh, that fish ain't that big. You're doing something to make it that heavy. Or it's something to that nature. And so I don't use Facebook. I'm not a YouTuber. I don't post on YouTube, but I watch a lot of YouTube, and I see some of the comments on some videos. I'd say it's kind of split. I think you're always going to have the crowd that has something negative to say. Yeah. I think you have a lot of that are encouraging and positive. A lot of people learn. They want to know more because now they're more inquisitive. I think it may be split. I just ignore all the negative. I don't comment. There's no point. I'm not going to give you a second of my time. And so that's kind of why I stick with Instagram, because I have never seen that.
Yeah, Twitter, or X now, is kind of the same way. In the beginning, it was always a bunch of people that were supporting you, motivating you, sharing your pictures. And now it all changed. There's a lot of trolls on there now that just, for whatever reason, want to bring you down.
Extremely. I'm 47 years old. In my mind, a phone is still for texting and making phone calls. So I prefer to be where the positivity is, and I like encouragement.
So how do you think electronics have helped tournament anglers? And not necessarily just forward-facing sonar, but just the advancements in technology from 20 years ago till today.
I will say, and I've used them from way back when, and I will say, and this will sound odd coming from me, I'm all for it. I'm not against it. I don't hate, as you would say, on live scope or forward-facing sonar. I run 4 graphs on my boat. I had 360. It's phenomenal. The side imaging is great for what you can find offshore. But truth be told, the biggest thing I think ever changed the game was good mapping with contours. And I love it, not only from a safety perspective, but a fish finding perspective. Even though I fish shallow, don't think for a minute I don't use my mapping. And that I haven't gone out and live scoped, but it's obviously dominating right now. I don't know that it will stay that way. They just had the elites on Willer Lake right here in my state. A lot of the top 10 never had it turned on. Fishing shallow. I don't hate it. Anyone can buy it at some point, even if you bought it used. Get out there and put a lot of time in with it and get good at it. So I think it comes down to the work.
Okay.
If I was younger, I would put the work in. I think electronics have come a long way. I'm scared of where they're going to go. I think everyone is. But where they are currently, it's just another tool in the game, just like your whopper plopper or your skipping jig.
That was a really, really good answer. Thank you. Do you have any tips for anybody that wants to get started in bass fishing tournaments?
There's not a lot of clubs anymore. When I was young, there were true clubs. We had a monthly meeting, we ate, talked about the last tournament and the next tournament, and then we went and fished. You don't see a lot of that, but there's a lot of trails out there. Even if you don't own a boat, look at the American Bass Anglers. If you don't own a boat at the American Fishing Tour, you don't have to have a boat. They have co-anglers or non-boaters. But start somewhere small. If you feel like you're ready to tournament fish, start somewhere small. Get good at that level. I know this sounds cliche because you've heard everyone say it. I'm trying not to regurgitate, but just start small and build your confidence. Biggest thing's confidence, and kind of work your way up. And for me, I was never a co-angler. I went straight to the front of the boat. I said, if I got to learn, I'm going to learn and get my teeth kicked in. And oh boy, did I. I promise, you think you're going to go win them all? No, you're about to learn. And do that. Learn. Always learn. Fish whenever you can. But don't just go fishing to catch fish and fish and fish. Go learn something. I help friends of mine learn to skip docks. We go power pole down in front of a dock. I tell them bring 2 or 3 rods and a couple spools of fishing line. And we sit there and skip and skip and skip till they can do it. And then I tell them just keep doing that. It'll eventually come natural. Well, do that in your fishing as you're building your tournament up. You'd be shocked at how quick you move up. That would be my tip.
Is there something that you wish you would have known sooner that you can share with everyone now? And this could be really anything, as far as traveling, how you prepare for tournaments, or just something fishing related in general.
One big thing I think that gets overlooked, maybe I'm wrong, I could be 100% wrong, but maintain your equipment. Everybody, I'm not talking about make sure your lower unit oil's changed or the bearings on your trailer are good. Change your hooks, maintain them. Change your fishing line, maintain it. Clean your reels and lubricate them. Keep your rods wiped down. Check your guides. Obviously, if you got a boat, take meticulous care of your boat and trailer. The worst thing is getting on the water in a tournament, and I used to be the world's worst. Something breaks. Really good maintenance and preparation, not just prior to the tournament. Always make it a complete habit to where it's just natural. And that would be a huge thing. It's going to save you a lot of money and heartache, because you're going to have a big bag one day and you're not going to make it back to weigh in because something breaks. It was your fault. Yeah. It wasn't the equipment's fault. Or lose a big fish because you didn't take care of your hooks or your line. Fishing wise, don't get out there and just go through the motions. It's easy for all of us. It's hot. Oh, it's already 10 o'clock and it's burning up. And you just start going through the motions. You're going down the bank, you're just fishing, you're casting. We've all done it, period. Whether we were fun fishing or in a tournament. Catch it. Realize that's what's happening. And make a change. Make a drastic change. Make a little change. Change bait. Crank your motor and move 15 miles up or down. Change something. Get your mind back in the game. And I think that's huge. I think a lot of us get stuck when we think it's tough out, just going through the motions. As a tournament angler, then we go to weigh in with our 7 pounds, and the top 40 people got anywhere from 15 to 21 pounds. Clearly something was going on the lake. We just didn't want to change. We wanted to just go through the motions. So that would probably be the other thing.
Awesome. So how many times a year do you fish?
I typically try to get on the water at least half the year. We're fortunate down here. We don't have extreme, well, outside of tornadoes, I guess, we don't have really extreme weather. Our lakes don't freeze over. So I try to get out there 140, 150 days a year. Now, these past 2 years, I've slowed down to where it's probably more like 60. I mean, I'm getting knee surgery next Friday, right? So I'm out of the game for a minute, and have been since I injured my knee the last few weeks. So that's kind of put me down. Last year, we're remodeling our house and building my shop for my boat. That stuff kind of takes away from it. I hate it, but it was all part of a 2-year plan. Let's get all this done so I can get back on the water. So I'm very fortunate that my wife, she not only supports this, every one of us, me and my friends, call it the bass coach. She wants me on what she sees the money and time invested. So that's where she wants me doing this. It's been a little rough last year and this year, but next year I plan to be back to half the year on the water, spread out, throughout the whole year. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I can't really stress enough how important I think that finding the right partner who is going to support you and what you're trying to do in anything, not just fishing related. And it sounds like you have that, and that's awesome. So since you're closer to the tournament aspect than I am, what do you think and how are your feelings for the future of bass fishing?
I watch it all. I watch all the trails. I read about all of it. I fish at a more local level or regional level. And being in it as long as I have, at my level, we've seen these cycles many times. We've seen all this. We're all acting like it's new, but it's not. A lot of this has already happened, and it will happen again sometime down the road. I think it's a shame that some things never change. Payouts, entry fees go up. Payouts never did. I think it makes it hard for aspiring anglers to really make it. They still have the dream, they have the goal and the drive, but then they get there and it's expensive. And social media has helped and hurt a lot of anglers that I watch and pay attention to. But at the end of the day, it's still bass, right? We do it because we love it. So it's hard for me to say. I'm sure one level it's too commercialized, but you still see everyone that you see doing it, be it at the local club tournament, fun fishing, all the way to the guys trying to make it to the top 2 tours. So it's clearly not just hurt the sport.
I agree, and I think I actually kind of enjoy it. So the more bass fishing can get commercialized, I think will help the sport and help, maybe youth anglers get more excited about it. Because if you're watching a regular TV show, you're never going to see a commercial for a paddle lure or a new fishing pole. So I don't think they've taken it too far yet. And speaking of that, do you have any plugs or sponsors that, you want to shout out real quick?
Well, to me, a sponsor I would call someone who's actually paying you to fish, right? So I would say, no, I don't have sponsors, but I do have partnerships and relationships with a few companies and I've had opportunities with others. I've even had others. I keep it very small to things that I truly know about and use. And to me, that's just me on anything. But I definitely use Daiwa rod and reel. Now, with that said, before my partnership with Daiwa, a relationship, all my rod and reels were already Daiwa. I only wanted that relationship because that's all I use. And I was like, hey, maybe I can help.
Yeah.
Well, I was able to make that happen. That's not just easy. It don't just happen, but I was able to eventually do that. And then angler tungsten, I've used a lot of tungsten. Had a chance to work with another, have a partnership with a relationship with another tungsten outfit. I like their product. The owner is amazing. The whole group there is amazing. I can't say enough about the product. One of my problems I have is the weight with tungsten kind of gets so small. Well, Angler Tungsten has the weight of that bait, or that weight, stamped on it. I don't keep messing up and putting the wrong stuff on my line. So I really enjoy that. They come out with a new jig line. I'll be honest, I make my own jigs, so I was skeptical. And now I got a boat full of their jigs. So that's not me trying to sell, market, nothing. I'm just saying I try to align with great products. So those would be the two biggest. And then American Bait Works. They have the scum frog and snag-proof frogs. Love their frogs. They're super soft. I don't have a problem with those at all. And that's really it. I don't want a bunch of partners. It's not something. I try to give everything to the other, three, and really Daiwa and Angler Tungsten. You come to any show in Alabama or bigger tournament, find the Daiwa booth, and you're going to see me standing there. We can talk fishing all day long, and that's really the only ones I work with.
So I'm super happy you brought up the scum frog. That is actually one of my favorite ones. The only problem I had with the scum frog is it doesn't weigh that much, so I can't cast it as far as I need to in some situations. So what I did was I started adding split shots inside of the body of the frog, and that did two things. One, it added a rattle, and two, it doubled my casting distance without impacting what it looks like when the presentation is still the same. Also, sometimes when I'm moving the frog slow, I use scent, and I swear by it. Do you ever use scent when you're using a frog?
Well, first you just started giving away the juice on frogs. So
Come on.
You can't just be throwing certain little tricks out there now. I got to mess with you. Hey, I'm not going to lie. I use the bait fuel from American Bait Works. I'm not going to say it. You can't. The odd part about it is you can't smell it. We as people can't smell it. I don't apply it as I'm out there. I actually put it in my bag and mush it all around and let it get in there. And I will say this, it doesn't hurt. I'm not going to swear it helps. I know it doesn't hurt, and I know when I hook them, it ain't on the outside of the lip. So I'm not going to say it does or doesn't work. I'm saying I make sure and put it on all my salt flats.
So next time you're fun fishing, we talked about the double fluke rig. Do the exact same thing, but put two scum frogs on. So basically you have a double frog rig.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I've never seen anybody do it. I'm not saying that I invented it, but, I haven't seen it anywhere else, and I had a blast doing it last weekend. I just put one on, and then the trailer is about 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet behind it, and, we have one go over the pocket, and then the other one go over the pocket right afterwards. It was a lot of fun. I totally recommend it.
I gotta be honest, I've never heard of it, but it makes extremely perfect sense to try. I tell you, you were talking about putting the split shots in the frog, right?
Yeah.
Do you mind if I throw out another couple of frog tips?
Yeah, man, absolutely.
We might as well give them out now. You gave out the best ones, right? But another thing those split shots do when you're fishing in like real good mats that's got holes in it, it'll make that frog sit down a little further in the mat and actually create a better profile for the fish underneath the sea through that matted grass. So it's a really good tip on a split shot. Another quick one that's helped me, the scum frog super soft, we can agree on that, right? Take a little dab of silicone, put over the hole in the rear end between the hooks. Now, you're going to have to get some water out now and again, and I know that. Put a little 1/4 inch split, dead center of the back on top. Little 1/4 inch split. Not going to change the way it performs or anything. If you think they were soft before, that allows the air to really come out because there's no back pressure from water against that hole around the hook.
Nice.
And it'll come right out the top. It collapses so fast. And obviously everyone knows modify the hooks a little bit by bending them out and up a little bit. Your hookup percentage will go through the roof.
All right, real quick. I know we're getting up against it, but do you ever go to any shows with some of the brands that you help represent? Have you ever been down to ICAST?
I was going to go to ICAST last year, had the invite with Dawa, so that's sort of you got to have credentials from a company to get in. I think now they let the media in. We talked about having a certain day or amount of hours for public, but I don't think that happened yet. Supposed to go last year, didn't go because it was right after a tournament, and I knew I was going to have trouble getting down there. But definitely, Gadsden, Alabama does an annual fishing expo. Go to that. Red Crest was just right here at Birmingham, Alabama. Was at Red Crest. Big tournament events. You got the booth set up at the way in there. Been to a couple of those. Kind of wherever Dawa calls and wants me to go within my area, within reason. I still have a career, so but I try to make everyone I can with what they do for me. I definitely want to make sure I'm giving back.
So yeah, I wanted to bring that up because I'll be down there this year with Deeper Sonar, and I always like to try to meet people that's been on the podcast and, just shake your hand, have another conversation, maybe buy you a beer or something like that.
Yeah, let me know when you're coming and when you'll be here, and I'll come find you, buddy.
Awesome, man. Right on. So as we wind this thing down, do you have any closing thoughts?
Get out there and fish. You don't need an $80,000, $100,000 bass. You can get a $600 two-man plastic boat at Academy or Bass Pro or wherever. Or you can fish off the bank, rivers, streams, creeks, ponds, farm ponds. A lot of people give you permission to fish their private pond. Just go fishing. Get a cane pole and cricket. Go fishing. Get the kids outside. Get them fishing. Get them off the TV, off the phones, off the video games. Once they hook a fish and drag it up, that's it. They're going to drive you crazy wanting to go fishing. So get out there and fish. Enjoy it. Don't get caught up in, if you're an aspiring tournament angler and you don't know where to start, find something small and just start. Don't worry about it. Half the people there are just starting. Get out there and fish. Get out there and enjoy it. Find the products you want to use in your price range. Just go enjoy it. There's so much to do when you're fishing in the sea. Get out there and enjoy it. And that really would be my closing thought. I want more people out there, but to enjoy it. Enjoy everything about it, the whole experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. And every single post on Instagram, whether it's relevant to that picture or not, I always hashtag take a kid fishing because I think it's so important, especially when they're younger, just to get them out there. And they don't even need to fish the entire time. They could fish for a half hour, drop the rod, go play a little bit, come back, go explore, eat something, come back, fish again. The sooner you can get them involved in fishing, the better, in my opinion.
I agree. And if they get tired, don't keep them out there. Don't make it a punishment. Take them home. I mean, that's all there is to it. Yeah. Keep it fun. But I think I'm going to start doing that hashtag. I thank you for that.
Well, Russ, I mean, I really, really appreciate you taking your time out of a Friday night to sit down with me and have a conversation. I thought it was awesome. You know, I definitely learned a lot. And, I mean, I'd love to have you back on again.
Man, I really enjoyed it. Again, thank you for having me on. And if you ever want me to do it with you in the future, or you come up with other questions, give me a call.
Well, that was such an awesome conversation. I can't recommend enough going on Instagram and Facebook and giving him a follow. Let's all give it up one last time to Russ Haughton. Hey, Russ, thank you for taking the time, my friend.
Oh, no problem, Nick. You have a good weekend and a good evening.